Are you a business owner and you've been kicking around the idea of starting a podcast? And you're like, what? Why should I? What is the big deal about having a podcast as a business owner? Well, you're in for a treat today. Our guest is going to share with you not only his experience, but his personal experience in being a business owner and now transitioning to having a podcast and what it does for you. So stay tuned. You won't want to miss it. Welcome to the Shā Sparks Show, where we talk with business and military leaders about what it means to invest in people, ignite their leadership voice, and to be fired up about their life and business. I am your host, Shā Sparks, certified fearless living coach, where I help leaders break through self-doubt, fear, and that negative inner voice to turn into unstoppable confidence and purpose. Together, we transform your fear into fearless action. To learn more, go to shasparks.com. And today, our guest is the amazing Jeremy Weisz. Welcome to the show, Jeremy.
Shā, thanks for having me.
So, Jeremy, you and I got connected on LinkedIn actually just a few weeks ago. So, thank you for taking time to meet with me today.
I'm excited.
For those of you who don't know, Dr. Jeremy Weisz is a former chiropractor and podcaster. Since 2010, he has been running Rise 25, where he interviews founders and CEOs of companies like P90X, Atari, Einstein Bagels, Mattel, Orlando Magic, and RX Bars, and so many more on his signature show, Inspired Insider. He has been helping businesses launch and run podcasts before people even knew what a podcast was. Podcast wasn't even a household name yet. So, of course, his motto is podcast will be similar to a website someday. And if you have a B2B business, then you should have a podcast. Point blank, period. Well, Jeremy, I am so excited to have you here. And I completely agree with you. I think businesses definitely need to have a podcast. And I always start off with my first question of what does investing in people mean to you?
Shā, it's a great question. Investing in people, to me, with Rise 25, we have some core values. One of our biggest core values, and it's not surprising of what industry we're in, which is keep learning. And, because that's what we're doing with our clients and ourselves is we're get to learn about all these different industries and people. So investing in people to me means professional development and education and furthering that. As a company, we have a book club. That book club could be meaning, it doesn't have to be a book club, but we will watch a masterclass. And so we'll have the team choose 2 masterclasses. If we gave homework, we pay people to do this, but for their hours to do it.
Yeah.
But we found hey, watch 3 modules of, I had Chris Voss of Never Split the Difference on my podcast. Great book. He's has a master class. And so we're hey, let's listen to 3 modules, come back and we'll discuss it, what we learned. We found that not everyone did the homework. So we decided, let's just watch it together on a call. We watch it in 1.5, 2 times speed. And the individual modules, maybe 7 or 10 minutes. So maybe we take 5 minutes, listen to it, and then we'll discuss the module, 5 minutes or 7 minutes, listen to it, discuss the module. So that we found worked better than hey, go and do it and then come back and discuss it. Maybe I'm just not strict enough to hey, let's just, but anyone who wants, it's not mandatory either. Anyone who wants to participate can participate, but we just find that discussing and elevating investing in people is furthering education and professional development.
I love that. It's definitely in alignment with my own values, which is really a wonderful subject. And of all the years that I've done this show, not one person, I believe, has mentioned the word values. They mention a actual value, but they've never said it as a whole. So I know that you mentioned learning, and I just completely agree with you. As leaders, if you stop learning, then you might as well stop living, right? In my mind. So let's take it back, though, for just a bit about the values. Was there a mentor or someone who inspired you that values was really important to you as a business? Or was it something that you were brought up with as a kid that you're like, you know what, we discussed these values in my house. I want to make sure that I'm bringing that into my business.
Yeah, I think early on, I mean, for me, you mentioned former chiropractor. When I used to commute to work, I had a longer commute back then. I used to listen to audio cassette tapes in my car. I'm
Yeah.
dating myself a little bit, but I just geek out on the professional development. So I used to listen to like the Tony Robbins and Dennis Waitley and Mark Victor Hansen, and then other like audio books as well at the time. But yeah, I mean, it was mentioned in a lot of those works about how important, the core values are. And sometimes, I guess to me in the beginning, it seems a little fluffy. Like, is that really that important? Let's talk about sales. It's more exciting. But when it comes down to, I think, having us make decisions in the company, it was important for us to sit down and talk about those values so that we can make hiring decisions based on those things. We can make decisions on who we work with on those things. So like one of our core values is just be nice. It sounds simple. And we found if someone or company is more abrasive, it was stressing out the team. And so even if they're willing to work with us and pay money, we want to serve them and be nice about it. But if they were being combative with the team, it was terrible for our culture and our team. And so it wasn't worth it. And so we found that, when we're bringing on a new client or even a new team member, like that is a core tenet of what we're looking at. So, it took me probably beating over the head, who knows, like 20 times before I listened to it. I'm a little slow learner, but eventually when we started implementing it, I saw how important it was.
Mm. I love that. So, as a coach, one of the things that I do is help elicit people's values. Before I started doing this work, I really didn't. I had ideas of what I valued, but I didn't really know that there was kind of a way that you can, find them for yourself. You can help others find them as well. And so, when you said you're having this conversation, did you have this conversation with your co-founder, yourself, people on your executive board? Who did you have that conversation with, and how did you break it down? Because I've heard that you have a specific acronym that aligns with your values.
Yeah, I mean, John Corcoran, my business partner, and I sat down and just thought about some things that are important to us, but we really wanted to get thoughts from the team as well. And so we put out to the team, like, here's the thing, kind of the principles that we think about on a daily basis and weekly basis. What do you think? And then we threw it to the team and go, hey, like, all these core values are hard to remember. I mean, we live them and they're embedded. Sometimes we don't have to remember them if they're embedded into our process. And so, for instance, in our hiring process, okay, like one of our core values is elevate service at a lightning speed. But so when we're evaluating someone that we're working with, we're looking at, I mean, we're responding back and forth, but we're looking at how quickly are they responding to us.
Mm.
And it's one of the boxes that we're looking at in the hiring process. Okay. Lightning speed is one of our core values. It's like, this is one of the check marks in our process when we're hiring, and it's just there. Okay. So we brought it to the team, and the team came up with give back as an acronym. And even, what I thought was important, Shay, I was like, why am I doing this and spending this much time in it, in the business and not with the family? So I actually did the same exercise
Yeah.
with the family. I have two daughters and my wife. We kind of sat down and go, hey, if we had what do you consider our family values, right? And making decisions, because my wife and I are always talking about kindness as like a value, because, teen or like junior high girls,
Of
I
course.
don't know if that's always at the top of the list, depending on the dynamic. But, we always just want our daughters to be nice and be inclusive. And if someone's feeling left out or whatever. So we had that discussion around, what do you consider values? It was interesting to hear what they had to say. And it was just an interesting conversation. And then we were trying to come up with acronyms with it. Now with like ChatGPT, we're like, okay, here's our core, here's the values, and we just listed a bunch of them, and then we threw it into ChatGPT and go, hey, come up with an uplifting acronym with these core values, and it came up with like, 5 different choices. And so it was just an exercise in discussing the acronym and the core values and how the ChatGPT described it. And it was also an exercise on the kids learning AI a little bit. So it was fun.
I love that. And how old are your daughters?
Right now, in this point in time, they're 11 and 13.
Yeah, kindness is
Yeah.
definitely on the top right there. Yeah, wow, that's great. My business partner and I, we did the same type of thing. We sat down and we're like, okay, at the end of the day, what do we want to hold true? And it's really about generosity, being open-minded, investing in not only ourselves, but in each other. And then fun. Like, let's bring in the fun part of it. For us, it was we are both strong in our faith. And so we knew that technically we didn't have to like add that value because it kind of just automatically shines through us. And I know some people add that in as a core value, but for us, it was more about making sure, like you said, everyone feels inclusive, feels like they belong. And even if they're unable to attend something, we make sure that we're recording everything, and then that their time and effort is still valued. And so I love that you did it in a discussion with your family as well as your business, because I feel like that's the foundation, right, of everything that we build on.
Totally.
Yeah. So take us back, if you will. So you're a young man, you're like, oh, I want to be a chiropractor and heal the world. And then you kind of transitioned into this amazing business that you and your co-founder have with Rise 25. So how did you get interested in having a podcast? Were you a chiropractor then, or were you doing something else at the time?
Yeah, so I got into it. My dad suffered with really bad pain in his neck, and he went to medical professionals for years. And really, the only thing that helped him was a chiropractor. So, in a short period of time, maybe a couple months, he suffered for a long time with the pain. And then, in a short period of time, it was better from going to the chiropractor. So, I saw that and I decided early on, I think that's what I want to do. I'm into natural health and think like the body healing itself. So I was like, I went and worked for the chiropractor that he went to in high school to see if that's what I wanted to do. And I saw people come in, not happy and leave happy, right? And less pain. So I went on to do that. And from chiropractic school, when I got out, they are great at teaching you the human body and being a chiropractor, but not at running a business and marketing. So I was going to a lot of marketing at the time. We're talking like 2006-ish, 2006, 7, these marketing internet marketing conferences. And so I stumbled across some people. And at that time, they weren't really calling it a podcast. They were just kind of publishing like audio online somewhere. And so I was like, this is great. I love and geek out on talking to founders and entrepreneurs. And so when I started recording episodes, it wasn't anything to do with health or chiropractic. It was more just fascinated with how other people were running their businesses. And so I started doing that. And then people saw that, and there were people that have approached me to help them launch and run their podcast at the time. I don't even know if we were calling it that. And so that by accident turned into a separate business. It wasn't meant to, I didn't set out to start a separate business. And I was, running the chiropractic business. I had massage therapists and as well, and office managers. But over time that grew. And then that's how I met my current business partner, John Corcoran, through podcasting. So I kind of joke around, is not quite a joke, but like, that when I track back to almost every good thing in relationship in my life, it tracks back to a podcast. And I did not meet my wife on a podcast, but my business partner, my best friends, I'm going to a friend's birthday party in like a month, staying at his house, hanging out with them. Awesome entrepreneur. I met him through the podcast and we became friends, right? So I've gone to weddings, family vacations with people I met through the podcast. And so that's really how it started. And over time, it's busy to run two businesses, but John and I met and I had kind of segmented my day in a way that made it somewhat manageable. I made work on the podcast stuff from 7 to 9, and then 9 to 12 see patients, and then 12 to 3 work on the podcast stuff, and then 3 to 6 see patients, and then
Yeah.
6 to 8 work on the podcast stuff, and then from midnight to 3 a.m. work on the podcast. So like it was a lot. And then over time, as the business grew, I couldn't really do both. And so eventually I had a chiropractor working for me, seeing the people, and I was more managing the practice. But I found once I'd stepped away, it was a distraction. If I really wanted to go all in, if I was looking at who are the successful entrepreneurs that I respect, and I mean, Elon Musk is a different animal who can run like $3 billion companies, but like
Right.
most of them were all in on one thing. And so I kept hearing that. And I'm like, yeah, I really need to do this. So I had to make a decision. And so it just transitioned to eventually like I exited the chiropractic practice and focused 100% of my energy on Rise 25.
I love that. And I completely agree with you about podcasters. They're my favorite people in the world. I feel like podcasters have this different energy that's all about win-win collaborations rather than competition or comparison.
Yeah, totally. It's really a great ecosystem, and people are like you said, it's probably because the values piece, right?
Mm,
It's about learning, professional development, and making great connections.
mm. I completely agree with you. And on that note, we're going to take a quick shout out to our sponsors. And I do want to mention that one of the things that we do here at the Shā Sparks Show is like to shout out to any sponsors who are interested in showcasing their values and what they do and letting us know that. So feel free to reach out to me and we can discuss your win-win collaboration with us. But in the meantime, if you are a solopreneur or creative content maker or creative entrepreneur or someone even in the cosmetology industry, and you're tired of going to the traditional networking events and that leave you with a pile of business cards, but leave you feeling like no one's really invested in you or what you're doing or where you're going. That is one of the many reasons that we created the Maker's Machine. We focus not only on your professional growth, but also your personal growth. And our conversation today about professional development. And our mission is very simple, and yet it's powerful. It's to help you grow, connect, and thrive. And we are your personal powerhouse, a weekly space where collaboration meets accountability and where big ideas turn into real action. So if you go over to the ShāSparksShow.com and message me the words Maker's Machine, together we can make great things happen. Well, Jeremy, one of the things
I
that,
want to piggyback on that, Shay, for a
yeah,
second. Probably the most important thing that I've done in my career, any career, is got around like-minded people in groups. And there's a certain amount of obviously idea exchange, but a certain amount of accountability as well. So just piggyback on what you said about your group. Yeah, I'm in like 4 different, entrepreneur groups, and it's one of the best, most important investments I make in myself and my business. So
mm, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I love that you shared that because it brings me to my next question. So if there's someone that's thinking about, well, I'm going to talk about transitioning because a lot of my audience is transitioning, whether it's from military to civilian life or
yeah.
it's from employee to entrepreneur. So is there some advice that when you were making that decision, walking through it, I've got my practice and I'm trying to fit in all the things with my podcast business. Was there a defining moment that you're like, you know what? I remember that time and now what I wish I knew, what would be your piece of advice or wisdom?
Yeah. I mean, I'll just speak from my own experience, because when people saw from the outside that all of a sudden I wasn't practicing chiropractic anymore and I had a podcast company,
And they're like, what's going on here?
they're like, whoa, how'd you do that? What happened? How'd you transition? And honestly, it was as I mentioned, my crazy schedule, it wasn't like an overnight type of thing, right? And maybe some people can do that, but I am kind of a calculated, high fact finder type of person. So I'm not gonna like drop one thing and jump in to something without like having some type of safety net. So it was really what they didn't see is we had been building this thing up over 5 years before I totally transitioned into it. So my experience is really, just working my butt off, in between when I can and or waking up early, staying up late to make something happen. And that transition seems like an overnight, but it's really over 5 years. So again, everyone's situation is different, but like if I'm starting any venture, I want to really focus in on, because there is a level foundational, okay, we need to pay the bills, right? And so
Yeah.
jumping into just a new venture could be risky. I mean, for some people, maybe it's jumping in just to another position somewhere, which is fine. But if someone, going out and starting a business, there's ups and downs. And so for me, it looked from the outside like, oh my God, how'd you just switch? And that wasn't the reality. It was like, working 70, 80-hour weeks to get to a point where I'm not anymore. So I don't know if I have advice per se, but it's just like, for me, it's like building up something slowly or as much time as I can, before jumping in completely. Right.
Mm.
So
I
it
love
wasn't so much of a risk, right? I mean, to someone else, like, oh my God, you just jumped over. But the reality is we had built up clientele, we had staff, and so it was just kind of an easy transition over time.
Well, and I love that you said that because I think that a lot of people will be on the outside looking in and they're like, oh my gosh, you are overnight success. And you're like, yeah, it took me 10 years. You have no idea how long it took me to get here. Our stories are very parallel. I was a hairstylist for many years and had a salon. I started the podcast and coaching and all the things, and I was doing the same things. All the hours, all the over hours of not being at the salon, I was working on definitely my podcast and coaching and anything else and off days and things like that. And when it was time for me to go all in on the podcast and the coaching and everything, people are like, "You're going to do what?" And it is. It's like, "Oh my gosh, you're changing everything." But at the same time, it's like you've kind of been mentally, right, preparing for this to go all in. And I think there's a something that just kind of shifts in you one day, kind of snaps that goes, my value that I'm providing in this capacity is exponentially bigger impact than the value that I was having in the one-on-one with your patients, with my hair clients. So can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I have lots of friends in the chiropractic universe, and they love what they do, and it's not something they would never do anything else. I think for me, what I realized about myself is I loved the interaction with the patients. I love the, kind of the heal, like the helping people heal themselves and get out of pain. But I had lots of interest and I loved business and I loved marketing, and I discovered that about myself. And like you said, one of the things too was going back to family. And as you relate, if you're a hairstylist or someone has a salon, you are bound to a physical location, right? And I loved the idea and always admired the people who had location independence, right? They can go, they can work somewhere. And I was like, that, from a lifestyle perspective with young kids, and I was commuting a lot. So there's like the pleasure part of things
Mm-hmm.
driving a decision, but there's also pain, right?
Yeah.
And pain, as we know, is a larger driver than pleasure a lot of times. And so there was a pain of like, wait, let's say in Chicago, you're in Florida, but you wake up and it's like 6 inches of snow. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to get out of bed. I got to drive. I got to shovel the front of the walk. But with a location defense, I could roll out of bed, get in front of the computer and start working. So there's a pain behind going in to physically be present somewhere, a separate location, and the other person has to be physically present. It's really hard in the virtual world to do a chiropractic adjustment over Zoom, right? Like
Yeah.
I saw my wife's psychologist. So, she sees most of the people in person, but like over COVID or if someone's sick or something, they could just do a Zoom call. They could do it
Right.
virtually. Chiropractic, you can't cut someone's hair over Zoom. That's
Right.
like, unless you're like coaching them on using the flow bee or something, but like
Of course.
that's not a good situation. So there is the pain that drives that decision as well. So I had to tap into like what's the pleasure part, but what's also the pain that I'm like, listen, what's gonna ultimately fill my bucket, but also not be as painful in my lifestyle world that I envisioned.
I love that. I think clearly we must have been related, separated at birth or something, because I was always the same way. Like, I'm only here in this room. I want to be able to get out and see the world and work from my laptop from a beach or wherever I want to go. And yeah, now that I live in Florida, I don't have to shovel snow, but I did before. And it is kind of puts you in an awkward position where you're like, okay, do I make the decision that I'm going to put my safety of my clients on me, where I'm like, I'm canceling today because you don't need to be out there? Or is it I can just, roll out of bed, turn on the computer and be like, all right, hi, we're here. We're doing this today. So I love that distinction. With all the things that you do, we're going to shift gears here a minute. We've talked about the values that you have coming from your own life, but also from chiropractic to your podcasting business. And you're an amazing entrepreneur and grown so much in everything that you've done. What do you want to be remembered for? What would be your legacy?
Yeah, I mean it's a big question. I think it kind of goes back to the core values, which is I'm always looking at ways to just someone who's kind and always looking out for the needs of someone else, a true giver. I probably make 5 to 20 introductions every single day to people in my
Mm.
network. That's a key value for me, which is just helping others and thinking of how I can help other people. I don't know if you used to listen, or one of the audio cassettes I would listen into in my car was Zig Ziglar, and I'll butcher his quote probably, but if you can get what you want if you help enough people get what they want. I think about that, which is like, how do I just help more people get what they want and
Mhm.
not worry about myself, but that will just come naturally if I go and try and help other people without having any intention of it coming back to me. So a mentor and friend, Brian Kurtz, he's got a great book, Over Deliver, and he talks about 100-0, which means just give 100% and don't expect anything in return.
Mm.
Okay. Now there's a whole different thing on that, which is a longer discussion around kind of like Adam Grant's book, Give and Take, because like I try and give to the givers, right? Because if I'm giving to takers, then it just doesn't feel as good. But that 100-0 concept of giving, not expecting that return necessarily.
Yeah, I love that quote by Zig Ziglar and Bob Berg. If you don't know, his book is The Go Giver.
Yeah.
He does
Yeah, I've
this.
had him on the podcast a couple of
Yeah,
times. Yeah, I love his stuff.
I do too. He's amazing. Well, I know just from the little bit that I've been connected to you, see that you are living that legacy now with your give first. So thank you for being that. And we've talked so much about your website and what you do. Where can people listen to your podcast and where can they connect with you on social media?
Yeah, I mean, inspiredinsider.com, all the episodes are on there. You can check it out. There's some really interesting people. You can pick your poison. There's a search bar. Just put in whatever you're interested in. I've had over 1,000 interviews, so there's a lot there. And you can check out rise25.com if you have questions. We also have a lot of stuff. We've talked about podcasting. We have a lot of free resources on Inspired Insider on podcasting. How do you name my show? What tools do I use? How do I launch a show? Like all those things we've shared with everyone for free. There's episodes out there, so you can check those too.
Nice. Well, thank you for that. And I will have that website in the show notes as well. And I just want to say thank you for being here, for sharing your wisdom with us. And before you go, will you share with us, is there a phrase, scripture, or mantra that you're living by right now?
Hmm. You know, there's I listen to 2 to 5 books a week, and so there's always kind of quotes floating around my head. I'll mention a couple books, but I'll mention a quote too. One of my favorite books is Wooden. It's by John Wooden, one of the most successful college basketball coaches of all time. He's got amazing quotes on there, like "Be quick, but don't hurry," and there's a bunch of others. I do think of the Napoleon Hill quote,
Mm.
what you conceive and believe you can achieve. If I can conceive it and believe it and I can achieve it, but obviously it goes back into implementation and putting small things in place every single day. When I first started working out, for example, I couldn't do a pull up. Like I could do maybe one pull up. And so when I was working out with the trainer, I need a goal, right? So we decided to do, I'm like, Sammy, shout out to my trainer. She's awesome, and I have a virtual trainer, Glenn Dawson. Both of them are great. But I said, what can my goal? And she's like really into CrossFit, an amazing CrossFitter, probably top 200 for her age group in the US. And I realized what we were doing is CrossFit, and I'm like, what's this Murph thing? Like, tell me about this Murph thing. And then it's like 100 pull-ups. She's like, it's 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, and then 2 mile runs. And then you're supposed to wear a 20-pound weighted vest. And I'm like, and at that point, I could do one pull-up, like one
Mm.
pull-up. And I'm like, that's what I want you to train me. I want to do a Murph, and I want to do it in less than 60 minutes. Okay. Not like a day.
Wow. Yeah.
So I put a pull-up bar in my house, and I just started in between cooking, just doing one pull-up. And then I
Mm.
go and do one pull-up, and then do one, just those small things. So like, I like the quote, what you can see and believe you can achieve, but also there needs to be those action steps and
Mm.
those small things in place and then over the course, and I was able to do the Murph in like 55 minutes. And then last year I did it in 47 minutes, but
Wow.
it just started with those very, very tiny things that I couldn't do and I wasn't good at. So
I love that. Well, first of all, congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment. And it's just how you run a marathon, one step at a time. Well, thank you so much, Jeremy, for being here and sharing all that you do.
thank you for having me.
And thank you for checking out the Shā Sparks Show. If you enjoyed the show, I would love to hear from you. I'm sure you were taking notes and everything that he was saying. He shared with us so much wisdom. So go over to the ShāSparksShow.com, leave us a message. And if you leave a voicemail, we will play it on an episode. So until next time, let's get fired up.